thought this was very interesting. Have you been listening to the recent MMA guests on the GRE?
He did have quite a few of them on.
He's had quite a few. Like Cody Garbrandt.
I listened to a little bit of his.
And then
I listened to
I listened
to a little bit.
Yeah, and then Black Beast. Derek Lewis.
Derek Lewis. I haven't listened to Derek Lewis.
That one just came out yesterday.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is, I think Joe's a pretty big fan of Whoop, and he's actually asked Cody and Corey about like wearing a heart rate monitor and that kind of stuff, and they both kind of said the same thing, is that the Whoop basically just gave them the same kind of thing every day. Like their strain was too high and their recovery is too low, and that they should take the day off. And they both said, "What the fuck do you expect me to do? I'm training for a fight. I gotta work out. I gotta get in shape."
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. What do you think about that? Because I have my take on it.
I mean, during that period of time, like, I feel like that's when you're in camp, like, you do just have to, like, push through that. Because, like your off season, or you're not in camp, like, that's when I feel like you could listen to your Whoop a little bit more when it comes to recovery and whatnot. Because you want to do, high quality training, and keep preparing for that way. But, like, when you get to, like, when you go into camp, you're tuned and ready to go and just push it for however many weeks until you taper down. But, like, while you're in camp, like, you do need to, because it's also mental. You're getting that mental, like, fortitude that the Whoop isn't really monitoring. So, like, you have to push yourself through when your body's kind of compromised. I mean, not excessively, because then it'll have negative effects on performance. But
well, that's what I think the problem is.
What's
that? You're going into the fight compromised.
Well, I mean, that's why you have to have a tape. Like, that's why they have a taper and everything, though, too. That's why they taper the last week and a half, 2 weeks of their camp.
I don't think, like, a lot of UFC fighters are doing it very smart, though, because, I mean, people get hurt all the time and pull out of fights and get sick. Like, Cody Garbrandt, he was talking about how he had COVID for, like, months.
Yeah.
And he never stopped training, and was just kept persisting and persisting, because when you train really hard, you're depleting your body, and you're compromising your immune system in a way, because you're just using all these resources to rebuild and refuel and make sure you can get back to 100%, and certain things have to take a back seat, and that's opt on your immune system.
Well, that's different. So I agree with you when you're sick, because, like, most of my life I've always just worked out or just kept pushing, like, through sick or small injuries, and it's just exacerbated and made it worse. Like, now I'm up to the camp that, like, if you're sick, then that's when you really do need to, like, cut it back. If, like, if you're healthy and whatnot and you're in camp, like, you should be pushing it. And if you notice something, like you're like, oh wait, like, I'm kind of like something's feeling wrong type thing, like, that's when you should wind it down. But you definitely, like, that mental fortitude that you get when you're really pushing yourself, I think that's really important, because when you're in a fight, like, you're getting punched in the face, like, odds are things aren't going well, and, like, you're having all these mental demons, like, you have to push through at that point.
I feel like you can push yourself mentally in a really hard workout, and that doesn't have to compromise your recovery. You know what I mean? You don't have to have those type of workouts, like, all the time, where, say you're getting a shitty recovery, and you're still like, have a bad recovery.
I mean, I don't know what most fighters' camps look like, if they're doing too much hard. I'm sure
both of them said they're doing 2-3 times a day
of, like, really hard
of strength training, jiu-jitsu, striking, sparring. Corey said he still does sparring. Cody, not quite as much nowadays. Max Holloway.
I was gonna say Max Holloway didn't do any.
Yeah, they didn't talk about the Whoop strap. But the thing is, what he mentioned is he's not doing any sparring. He wasn't getting injured. He wasn't going super hard all the time, and he was flowing more and just kind of learning patterns of fighters and doing more strength and conditioning. And I mean, look at it. I bet if you had him on a Whoop, he wasn't maxed out on strain every single day, and he's shown some really good performances lately.
He did also mention, though, and it is important to, like, also say that, like, he can do that now because he put in the hard sparring when he was up and coming. So like now he's at the level where like now he can kind of do that. You know?
Yeah.
So he's paid his dues.
I think that's more towards what you're talking about earlier with like the mental aspect of it is like when you get punched in a fight, you got to know how to mentally deal with that and not get too like what Max said, overwhelmed and shocked and like, oh shit, like what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But I think all three of those guys, Corey maybe less so. How many fights has Corey? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'd say they're all pretty well seasoned fighters. You know.
Yeah, I mean, for the UFC, like they've been fighting for a while because it's no easy chore to get into the UFC.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then to be high ranked guys. You know, Cody's been a champ. Max has been a champ. Is Max a champ right now?
No, I think Alexander, whatever his name is right. He has to get his belt back.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Like, I think it could have gone to Max in the second fight, but they gave it to.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then Corey's like a top 2 guy or something like that, top 1, top 2. So I think there's a huge problem in MMA nowadays of people just being chronically overtrained and just they're thinking more about volume and like getting as much work done as possible and not being as deliberate with the work and coming into the fight more fresh.
I mean, I think that's like where like sports scientists are becoming more and more popular. You know, because like they have like their coaches, you know, kind of like monitor all the other coaches, like their head coach, you know.
Yeah.
But they're like in the fight game, like they while they do have some understanding of like, minimal of like sports science, like they don't really have like that real foundation.
No,
so I think sports scientists are really popular and up and coming.
Especially Corey, what he was saying is he basically puts his whole camp together himself. He has like coaches that kind of, you know, demonstrate things and explain concepts and what he needs to perform. But like the day-to-day like work he puts in, he does it all himself. I'm just like, why, you know, why at that high a level are you doing it? Like, I don't think he has any kind of kinesiology background. I just think they're all overtrained constantly, and it's just
Probably likely they are. Yeah.
And you know the important thing that on the Whoop it always talks about is there's a difference between overreaching and overtraining. I think overreaching is important because you need to build that extra stimulus to get the adaptation, right? Because if you're not reaching enough, you're pushing yourself to like the point that you can handle and not going above that. You're not going to build the adaptations you need, right? But there's a spectrum, you know, and I think they're way high. There's like balance, and then like overreaching, and then there's overtraining. I think for those 6-8 weeks or whatever it is, how long they're maybe 10 weeks. I think Corey said it's 10 weeks. For those
crazy.
Yeah, for those however many weeks, you're constantly overtraining every single day. Because if you're doing 2-3 days a week every day, there's simply no way your central nervous system and your autonomic system is recovering properly.
I mean, at the intensity that they get each session, then yeah, I'm sure. But I think you can do 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 times a day, if you modulate your intensity properly. And like there's a lot of like technique and movement as opposed to like hard sparring.
Yeah,
in all those sessions. Or if like one of those sessions is also like say like yoga or like stretching, like active recovery sessions itself as well.
Yeah, with all those guys, I don't think any of them talk about any active recovery.
Yeah.
And then only one that really talked about like flows and lower key like drill type stuff was Max.
Yeah.
All the other guys, it was just like balls to the wall, strength and conditioning, sprinting, sparring, that type of stuff. There's simply no way. And I think you're going to and then they dehydrate themselves 48 hours before they fight, which is fucking terrible for your brain. I think all of them are just chronically overtrained and just depleting their body. Because Corey even talked about this, like every day he's sore, it just feels like shit, and then he's like, it's not until like a week or 2 weeks before the fight I start feeling like an actual athlete. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. Well, you shouldn't feel like, I know you're training hard, but you shouldn't feel like that depleted for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, like.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And then they're just denying the data and the science that the Whoop is showing you. It's just numbers. It's not like it has a bias to make you
They're trying to get you to lose the fight.
Yeah, you know, it's just data. Like it has no bias, right? It's just numbers. And these numbers are showing you that you're working too much. But then I think it's just that mentality in MMA where it's like you got to put in the most work.
Yeah.
And it's just you got to focus more on the quality and like be more decisive, or not decisive. What's the word? Fuck, another D word. I can't think. More just precise with your training, if you will. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I got on that. Well, I thought it was very interesting. Both of them had the same kind of thoughts on the Whoop strap.
Yeah.